And so I can post this later on, and we will begin with our law changes. So here we go. The first change is to Law 3. Says a player who is being substituted must leave the field by the nearest point on the touchline or goal line. So what that means, for years and years and years, we have required a substitution to take place at midfield, meaning the player who is coming on has to be at midfield to come onto the field, and the player who is leaving the field had to leave at midfield. That is no longer the case, primarily because we don't want to waste time during the game with people, going all the way across the field to go off the field. So new law, a player who is being substituted must leave the field by the nearest point on the touchline and the goal line. This one is going to take some management from you guys because they aren't going to know that, and they're going to want to go off at midfield. So for the first couple of months, you're going to want to say to folks, hey, you're being subbed. Let's go off the field right here. Let's go off the field right here, and sort of point them in direction that that you want them to leave, because they're just not going to be used to it. There is one exception to this. The referee is allowed to let the player leave somewhere else if it's dangerous or if there's an issue with safety leaving on the closest touchline to where they are in the field. For example, if there are some unruly parents on one part of the touchline, and that is where the player from the opposing team would have to exit the field, let's be practical and not ask them to leave the field directly in front of the opposing parents who have been a little unruly on the day. So use your best judgment. If there is no issue with what's going on the touchline with the parents, then just ask them to go off the field on the touchline. So a couple of quick questions here that have been submitted. Will the children's games use the new rules in the fall season? The answer to that is yes. All soccer games that are competed starting with the new fall season will be using these new laws of the game. So the answer to that question is yes. Another question, what is the touchline? A touchline is the boundary line that runs the length of the field. So if the ball goes out of bounds over the touchline, that's when we have a throw-in. So that's what the touchline is called. The goal line is the line that the goal posts are on. So if the ball goes over the goal line, we have a goal kick or a corner kick. If the ball goes over the touchline, we have a throw-in. Will this apply to high school games as well? That's a good question. You'll want to check in with your local high school association. I would assume yes, because most of the high school rules are sort of in alignment, but at the same time, high school is notorious for having a lot of their own rules. And so you'll want to check in with your local high school association about whether or not we're using the new rules when you start up the season. Any other questions on Law 3? Okay, then we'll move on to the next one. Law 5, technical area misconduct. A team official guilty of misconduct will be shown a yellow card for a caution or a red card for a sending off. The previous law said that yellow cards and red cards could only be shown to players on the field, and that coaches would either be warned or dismissed without the showing of a card. For the sake of clarity and just for easier communication, it's going now to be possible for you to show the yellow card and or red card to the coaches. All the same reasons that we would be showing a yellow card or red card to a coach are all still the same. So we have dissent or anything like that. Any reason that you would warn them, we want to go ahead and show a yellow card. Any reason that we would dismiss them, we'll show a red card. Any questions on this? Couple of questions. What is the definition of a team official? That is going to be a coach, a trainer, a doctor, assistant coach, etc., etc. So anybody on the bench that is not a substitute player or a player is a team official. Does the coach still get the card for spectator misconduct? That is going to be a local rules of competition question. The laws of the game do not state that a coach gets a yellow card for spectator misconduct, but if your local league has this rule, then yes, the coach would get the card for the spectator problems. Question, does this apply to parents as well? No, it is only team officials. Parents are not team officials. These folks, team officials, are coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, trainers, anybody who has a pass on the CNRA, or excuse me, on the technical side for the team is a team official and can be shown a yellow card. Question here, what would the coach get a yellow card for? That's going to be too long of an answer for this. So all the same reasons that we would warn. Question, do we have to give a yellow card before giving a red card? No. Just like on the field, if the action from the coach deserves a red card, then you give them a red card. For example, if they scream an obscenity at you that would get a player sent off with a red card, we will naturally show the red card to the coach as well. This is just a change in the method of communicating. Previous to this, you didn't show cards to coaches. You would just go over and verbally warn them, and then you would dismiss them from the match without showing a card. Now, to make it easier for everybody, we show them a yellow card, we show them a red card. Can parents be warned? No. I've said this at length, but you don't want to engage with parents at all. Go talk to the coaches if you have a problem. Question, do we have to write as center referees on the notepad if we give a red card to a team official? Yes. You would want to do that just as if you had sent off a coach. You will want to report if you red card a coach. Any other questions? Any questions relating to how to know when to warn coaches? That's all a much lengthier presentation. We're not going to get into that one today. So again, just a basic concept. In the past, we would just warn them verbally and then dismiss them verbally from the game. Now we need to show them a yellow card and show them a red card. One little nuance here. If the offender on the bench cannot be identified, the senior coach who is in the technical area at the time receives the misconduct. So a perfect example of this is if you hear somebody yell something from the technical area that requires a yellow card, but you don't know who said it, then you're going to go to the head coach and they're going to get the card, because at the end of the day, the head coach is responsible for their technical area. So don't allow them to have one coach say something and then have another coach say something and then have another coach say something. If they have 3 assistant coaches, we want to make sure we're not letting them blame it on each other. Question here, Nicholas, can't you just ask who it was? No, because a smart coach will tell you, oh, it was that other person over there who doesn't have a yellow card now. And they'll just keep yelling and yelling and blaming it on other coaches, and then you'll have 4 or 5 coaches get a yellow card and nobody will get sent off. So the purpose of this rule is to make sure that coaches aren't abusing referees and not being held accountable. So if you don't know who said it, the head coach becomes responsible, and we only want to show the head coach a caution or a red card. What if it was a player? Again, please just only read the law that we're talking about here. This is only talking about team officials. It's not talking about players. We're talking about team officials. Everything related to players remains as it always has been. If a player says something, you give a player a yellow card. Nothing changes in relation to players. It's only related to a team or a team official, a coach, an assistant coach, or a trainer, or a team manager, or etc. Question here, what if we don't know which team it came from? Figure out who you just made the call against, and that's probably the team that's yelling at you. That's not that complicated. Okay, moving on to Law 8. The team that wins the coin toss prior to the game can now choose to take the kickoff or they can choose which goal to attack. That is a change because up until now, when you toss the coin, whoever won the coin toss had to decide which end of the field they wanted, and the team that lost the coin toss automatically got the ball. Now, you want to toss the coin before the game, and whoever wins the coin toss is allowed to choose, do they want the ball at kickoff, or do they want to choose which side of the field that they're going to start on. Pretty straightforward change. The reason that they put this change in place is because the law changed a couple of years ago to allow a goal to be scored directly from a kickoff. Therefore, an advantage can be gained from the coin toss, and they felt it was appropriate for the winner of the coin toss to get to choose what they wanted to do. So now moving forward, when you do the coin toss before the game starts, the team that wins the coin toss gets to choose, do they want to take the kickoff at the beginning of the game, or do they want to choose which goal they're going to attack? Pretty straightforward. Any questions on this? Question. So the team that wins, if they pick kickoff, does the other team pick the goal? That is correct. If the team that wins the coin toss decides to choose to take the ball at the beginning of the game, then the other team would get to choose which half of the field they're going to be on. Other questions? Okay, then moving us along. We're getting into drop balls now. Sarah, question, what does the losing team get? That was the question that was just answered. The losing team gets to choose which end of the field to be on. Question here, before the coin toss, should you notify players of the change? Probably not that necessary because I don't know that they really pay too much attention. So I would just toss the coin, and when they win, say you can choose the ball or which end of the field that you want. Don't overcomplicate it too much. Moving on to dropped balls. Moving forward, if play is stopped inside the penalty area for reasons not being a foul, the ball will be dropped for the goalkeeper. So again, if you stop play while the ball is inside the penalty area for other reasons than calling a foul, the ball will just be dropped for the goalkeeper to restart. What that means is if you have, for example, an injury or a head injury or something like that, where you have to stop play, but you didn't call a foul for any reason, the restart will be a dropped ball for the goalkeeper. We want to remove contested drop balls from the game. And so this is an example of if you have a dropped ball inside the penalty area, the ball, or a stopped play, the ball will be dropped for the goalkeeper. Does that question here? Does that apply to halftime? No, because that halftime is ending a period of play, and you restart with a kickoff just like at the beginning of the game. So no, this does not count for halftime. Is the penalty area the area around the goalie box? That is correct. The penalty area, we oftentimes call it the 18-yard box. It's the line that is drawn 18 yards from the goal line and the width of the penalty area. So yes, it's the big area around the goalie box. Question here, which goalie? Very obviously for the goalkeeper inside the penalty area where you stopped play. So if you're on the south end of the field and you stopped play in the south end penalty area, then you would give the ball to the goalkeeper in the south end of the field. If play is stopped outside the penalty area, this one's a little bit more complicated. If play is stopped outside the penalty area, the ball will be dropped for one player of the team that last touched the ball at the point of the last touch. So again, what we're trying to get away from is contested drop balls. We don't want to see those taking place anymore. And so if you stop play, again, most commonly for an injury, then the team who last touched the ball will get the ball dropped for one of their players without it being challenged. So a question here, can the goalkeeper pick up the ball? Yes. because that's how you're restarting play. So the goalkeeper is allowed to pick up the ball. Question, should we have a player from the opposing team pass back to the goalkeeper? No, we actually want that practice to stop. This is one of the main reasons that this law is changing, because for the good of the game for years, we oftentimes would manufacture possession off of a dropped ball. So we'd say, hey, will you please kick the ball back to this other person? And, 9 times out of 10, it worked fine. But in games that were a little bit more difficult, or in heated games or rivalry games, you would see things like a player kick the ball on goal or kick the ball out of bounds way down in the corner to create a disadvantage for the team, and that would lead to frustration and anger and all these different things. So to avoid that, we no longer want you manufacturing possession with a dropped ball. So whoever last touched the ball, they're going to get the ball unchallenged, dropped for them. The normal drop ball procedure is in place. You drop the ball for them, it has to touch the ground, and then they can play. There still has to be 2 touches from a ball before it's scored, but we just want to drop the ball for the team who last touched the ball at the point where they last touched it. Question here, what is dropped for the goalkeeper? It's a drop ball. Just like a normal drop ball, if the ball's in the penalty area when you restart, you just do a drop ball for the goalkeeper. What if the injured player last touched the ball? That's okay, because if you read the rule here, it says the ball will be dropped for one player of the team that last touched the ball. It doesn't have to be the last player who touched the ball. It just has to be a player on the team of the player who last touched the ball. Are people allowed? So we've got a lot of questions about how far away they have to be. We'll get into that in just a second. If the ball touches the referee or another match official and goes into the goal, team possession changes, or a promising attack starts, a dropped ball is awarded. So this is the only contested drop ball that we'll have, is if the ball touches the referee. So if the ball touches the referee, we want you to stop and have a drop ball. And then lastly, in all cases, all of the other players of both teams must be at least 4 meters away. So when you're going to do a drop ball moving forward, we want everybody to be 4 yards away. That will allow them time to take possession and move on. Question, what if there was a foul and before the ref could stop play, the fouling player touched the ball? Does restart go to the fouled player's team or the last touched player? If you call a foul, then none of these things take place because you've called a foul. We don't restart with a dropped ball when you've called a foul. We restart with a free kick. So if a foul happens, call the foul and restart with a free kick. The team that last touched the ball gets the ball in front of them to kick. That is correct. You are going to do a drop ball for the team that last touched the ball. Okay. Moving on from the drop ball. Delayed cautions. This is something that you're going to have to be very careful with, and I would actually suggest nobody on this call actually do this, but we will go through it anyway. If the referee is about to issue a yellow card or a red card, but the non-offending team takes the free kick quickly and creates a goal-scoring opportunity, the referee is now allowed to delay the yellow card and the red card until the next stoppage if the offending team was not distracted by the referee. So the current law says that once play restarts, you're not allowed to show a yellow card. So if somebody commits a foul that is worthy of a yellow card and you play advantage or you delay the yellow card for any reason, and then the ball goes out of play and gets restarted, you're not allowed to go back and show the yellow card. That's the current way that the rule exists, is once play restarts after the calling of a foul for which a yellow card should have been given, you are not allowed to give that yellow card. that law has now been changed, because what we're finding very rarely is that a team takes a foul that for which a player should be yellow carded, but immediately jumps up and puts the ball back into play for a quick restart because there's a promising attack for them. We want to allow that, but still be able to come back and show the yellow card. So again, I want to repeat, this is probably not anything you guys are going to use in your grassroots level games. I would not suggest you ever delay a yellow card in the games that you're working primarily, but this is a law change that we wanted to cover. So this slide deck will be put on the website, and you can go to ifab.com and review the new laws on the website. So I would encourage you to read into this one further on your own if you would like to. Handball. Deliberate handball remains an offense. Nothing has changed on how we call handball in normal situations when a deliberate offense has occurred. Please review, if you know what this is, the FIFA considerations for handball decision making. Stuart, if you're on and you want to get to a link to the FIFA considerations and put that in the comments, you're welcome to do that, or in the chat. But the FIFA considerations will help you determine more easily what an actual handball is. So I would encourage you to read that. Now for the law changes related to handball. The following handball situations, even if accidental, will now be considered a free kick. And the big change here is typically in the past we have not punished accidental handballs. But for fairness now, and for the sake of a fair game, even in situations that are accidental, we're going to be issuing a free kick for the following scenarios. If the ball goes into the goal after touching an attacking player's hand or arm. Full stop. If the ball goes into the goal after touching an attacking player's hand or arm, even if it's an accident, we're going to give a free kick to the defensive team, because it's not fair for a team to score a goal off of the hand or the arm, even if it's on accident. It's just not fair, and so IFAB has made this change so that even accidental handballs that lead to a goal, we don't want to have them happening. Again, only if it touches the attacking player's hand or arm. Defensive hand or arm, very different. But attacking player's hand or arm, if an attacker hits it, their hand or their arm and goes in the goal, we want to disallow the goal and give a free kick to the defensive team. If a player gains control or possession of the ball after it touches their hand or arm and then scores a goal or creates a goal-scoring opportunity. So same basic concept. If a team in the attacking phase of play, an attacker hits the ball off their arm, even if it's on accident, and immediately gets possession and starts to attack on goal, we want to call that a foul and give a free kick to the defensive team. Again, this is a fairness question. Question here, hand or arm close to the body, still a free kick? Yes. Again, even if these are accidental, anytime it touches the hand or the arm of the attacker, we're going to want to call a foul. So all the normal considerations, we don't want to allow an unfair goal to be scored by an attacker if it touches their hand or their arm. Comment here, if a defensive player scores an own goal, will it count? Please, I'm going to ask everybody to stop creating scenarios that the law doesn't cover. Have we talked at all about defensive players? The answer to that is no. We're only talking about actions of attacking players. So if a defensive player touches the ball and it goes into the back of the net, we don't care, because that's a defensive player and they just put the ball into the back of their own net. Nothing unfair happened there. What is unfair is for an attacking player to have the ball hit their arm or their hand and go in the goal. So if an attacking player does that, we want to call the foul. I'm not going to get into how far up the arm it should be called. It's the entire arm, the hand or the arm. The shoulder is fair, chest is fair. Anywhere on the arm or the hand is a handball. What if they're blocking their face? Doesn't matter. If an attacking player has a ball touch their hand and go into the goal, it's not a goal. It is a foul. It doesn't matter if it was on accident. It doesn't matter if they were blocking their face. None of it matters. If it touches their hand, it's a foul if it happens to the attacker. Again, this is a fairness issue. Nobody thinks it's fair for a player to score a goal off of a handball, even if it was on accident. If the ball touches a player's hand or arm, which has made their body unnaturally bigger. So now we're not talking about just attacking players. We're talking about any player on the field who has their arms extended away from their body and is making their body bigger as a result. So if they're taking up more space by having their arms out to the sides, even if it's an accident, we want to call a handball. And then number 4, if a ball touches a player's hand or arm when above their shoulder, unless it's a player that has deliberately played the ball, which then immediately goes up and hits their arm. That's highly unusual, but I've seen examples where a defender has tried to clear the ball backwards over their head and it hits their arm. So if the ball touches a player's hand or arm when it's above their shoulder, we want to call that a free kick because it's not normal for players to have their arms up above their shoulders. That's not a normal thing. And so we don't want to allow that to happen in the game. We want to punish that with a foul unless the same player whose arms it hit is the player that just kicked the ball. So if I kick the ball and I hit myself in the arm with it, we don't want to call that a foul because that's not intentional. That's not something that they meant to do, and we don't want to punish them for that. Questions on these handball modifications? Okay. The following will not usually be a free kick unless they are one of the previous situations. So the previous situations we just talked about, yes, we're going to give a free kick. The following situations will not be a free kick. If the goalkeeper attempts to clear the ball from a throw-in or a deliberate pass back from a teammate, but the clearance fails, the goalkeeper can then handle the ball. So we all know that a throw-in or a pass back to the goalkeeper is not allowed to be picked up. If a teammate of the goalkeeper throws it to him or passes it back to them, the goalkeeper is not allowed to pick the ball up. We all know that. What this law is saying is that if a goalkeeper legitimately goes to clear the ball and just mishits it, kicks it off to the side, kicks it straight up in the air, whatever, makes a deliberate kick and just mishits it or the clearance fails, the goalkeeper is now allowed to pick the ball up. The rationale being the ball is not coming to them or being picked up from a pass back, but instead from an errant play, not something deliberate. What this law is intended to punish is deliberate passes back to the goalkeeper that the goalkeeper picks up. We don't want to allow that. But if the goalkeeper kicks the ball and something weird happens and they kick it straight up in the air, they kick it off to the side, now they're able to pick it up because that wasn't done deliberately. Question here, what if the goalkeeper tries to deliberately miss? I highly doubt you're going to see that because that's incredibly risky. So I wouldn't worry about it. If the goalkeeper wants to deliberately kick the ball way off to the side and then go pick it up, you know what? Let's not worry about it. I really don't think you're going to see that because most goalkeepers are just trying to clear the ball away. And what we're trying to address here is when the goalkeeper just mishits the ball and now they want to go and collect it and do something with it, we are going to allow that. If a player is falling and the ball touches the hand or the arm when it was between their body and the ground to support their body. So again, if a player goes down to make a slide tackle, or if a player is falling down and is bracing their fall with their hand and the ball hits the hand, we do not want to call that a free kick because it's natural for a player to brace their fall. We expect them to do that sort of intuitively without thinking about it, and we don't want to punish them when that happens. So if a player braces their fall or puts their hand on the ground to brace themselves for a slide tackle and the ball hits their hand, we do not want to call that a handball. However, if their hand is on the ground and it extends away from their body, now we do want to call that. So again, we're differentiating between fairly bracing yourself with your hand underneath your body versus having your hand on the ground out away from your body, making your body bigger. We do want to punish those with a handball. Any questions on that topic? Okay, that's all the handball changes. Restarts. This is going to be the one that I'm looking forward to the most. When there is a wall of 3 or more defenders, the attackers are not allowed within 1 yard of the wall. What this law change is trying to get at is all of the pushing and shoving that happens when several attackers or a single attacker tries to get in and amongst the wall of the defensive players on an attacking free kick. So anytime there is a wall of 3 or more defenders and the attackers are not allowed, anytime there's a wall of 3 or more defenders, the attackers are not allowed within a yard of that wall. If there are 2 defenders or just 1 defender, then the attackers are allowed to be anywhere they want to. If there are 3 or more defenders in the wall, then the attackers are not allowed to be anywhere within 1 yard of the wall. That's 1 yard in front, 1 yard in the back, 1 yard to the sides. It doesn't matter. They're not allowed to be within 1 yard of the wall. An attacker who is less than 1 yard from the wall when the kick is taken will be penalized with an indirect free kick going the other direction. So if you have a player who refuses to do that or moves into the wall right before the kick is taken, you are to blow the whistle, point for a free kick for the defending team, which will be an indirect free kick. Any questions on this law change with the wall? Okay. When the defending team takes a free kick inside their own penalty area, the ball is in play once the kick is taken. It no longer has to leave the penalty area before it can be played. So this was a very nuanced law that probably a lot of folks weren't aware of. But anytime there was a defending team taking a free kick from inside their own penalty area, the ball used to have to leave the penalty area before it was considered in play. That is now not the case. Once the ball is kicked, the ball is in play. It does not have to leave the penalty area before it can be played. Any questions on that? Sarah, this includes goal kicks. That is correct. I'll be getting to that under Law 16, but yes, this also includes goal kicks. One other detail, actually, I'll just cover it now. One other detail that we'll cover under Law 16 is attacking players now do not have to leave the penalty area before the ball can be played. We do want them to leave the penalty area. They are required to leave the penalty area. But if the defending team or the team that now is taking the free kick or the goal kick decides to play quickly, we don't need to make them wait to play the ball until the attacking team leaves. They can play quickly if they want with other attacking players inside the penalty area. We do not have to require them to wait until everybody has cleared out. If they want to play quickly while people are still inside or opponents are still inside, they are welcome to do that. But generally speaking, we want the opposing players to clear outside the penalty area. And then once the ball is played, they're able to go back inside the penalty area immediately. They don't have to wait for the ball to go outside the penalty area. But again, if a team decides to play quickly and the opposing team has not cleared out of the penalty area, that is okay. And if the defending team chooses to play quickly, the attacker can now immediately put pressure. They don't have to wait. Any questions on this restart? Okay. Penalty kicks. The goalkeeper must now have at least part of 1 foot on or in line with the goal line when the kick is taken, and cannot be standing behind the line. So this is a change in a couple of ways. One, goalkeepers had started standing behind the line and then moving forward so that they had forward momentum when the kick was taken. That is no longer allowed. They are required to start with at least a part of 1 foot on the goal line. The other change is that we used to require them to have both feet on the goal line when the kick was taken. This law change is acknowledging that that's not really fair to the goalkeeper, because being able to move, particularly take a step towards a dive, is a key part about being a goalkeeper. And if they couldn't move until the ball was played, that was really hard for them to do. And oftentimes we weren't calling that anyway. So this now says that the goalkeeper must have 1 foot on the line when the kick is taken and cannot be standing behind the line. The goalkeeper also must not be touching the goalposts or the crossbar or the nets, none of which may be moving. So the goalpost, the crossbar, the nets can't be moving at the time of the PK. So we want to make sure the goalkeeper is not reaching up and slapping the crossbar or hitting the goalpost or anything like that to make stuff move. They have to be on the goal line, ready to take the kick. Any questions on this PK? Okay. The team's penalty taker can have a quick treatment or assessment if injured and then take the kick. So the way that the law currently is if a player is hurt and the trainer comes on the field, the player who was being assessed by the trainer has to leave the field. Because oftentimes attacking players are the people who are fouled inside the penalty area and sometimes need to be assessed by a trainer, IFAB didn't think it was fair that the penalty taker be required to leave the field when they were the one who was injured by a foul by the defending team anyway. So the law change now says that a player who is designated as the penalty kick taker for a penalty kick does not have to leave the field if it needs to be assessed by a trainer, and can take the kick. However, if the player who was injured is not taking the kick, then they will be required to leave the field with the trainer. Questions on this part of the law? So basically, if a player gets hurt and you call the trainer on and that player wants to take the penalty kick, we are not going to make them leave the field. We are going to allow them to stay on the field. Next one, goal kicks. We already covered this briefly. The ball is in play once the kick is taken. It can be played before leaving the penalty area. So we no longer have the requirement that a goal kick leave the penalty area before being played. Opposing players must clear out of the penalty area unless the defensive team plays quickly. If the team with the goal kick decides to play quickly, no problem, let them do it. Now the ball is in play. The opposing players do not have to clear outside the penalty area. Any additional questions on this? Okay, that is all the law changes for us this evening. I had a couple of people have asked about getting a new law book. We are not sending out law books. We actually don't get them either. But what I would encourage you to do is go to the IFAB website, or on your iPhone or on your Android phone, search for IFAB in the applications, and you can have the updated laws of the game on your phone at all times. I would suggest anybody and everybody actually do that, because it's the quickest and easiest way to have the laws of the game accessible for you on your phone. Stuart just put a link up in the chat feature, and so you can click on that to get the application that will give you the laws of the game for quick and easy review. Question, can we buy the law book? Yes, you can. You can go to IFAB and buy the law book. A couple of questions that came up after I moved on. Do we warn the defending team before they relocate the ball with the foot? Richard, I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. So if you want to try to rephrase that in a way that I can understand it, please do. A question, Can the attacking team run inside the penalty area and shoot as soon as the goal kick is taken? The answer to that is yes. As soon as the goal kick is taken, the ball is in play. Question here, how do we know who is taking the penalty kick? The team might be stalling by saying the injured player is the penalty taker. It's quite easy. The team, if the player gets hurt and he says, I want to take the penalty kick, great, no problem, let him stay on. If somebody else is lining up to take the penalty kick, then no problem, the player goes off the field. We don't need to overcomplicate it. Question from David, what if we don't have a phone? Then get on your computer and pull up the laws of the game there. You can visit ifab.com and you'll find the laws of the game there. Any other questions or problems? You can utilize the chat feature or the Q&A feature. Any other questions before we end the webinar for this evening? Okay, then thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate you taking the time, and everybody have a good night.